Despite the charm of Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, puppets do not have a life of their own. So does that mean when the man who created them retires, they retire? Perhaps, but I also found out puppets can live forever. They hang in a state of suspended animation. Characters from Jack and the Beanstalk, Aladdin, Pinocchio, The Wizard of Oz. Fairy tale folks who've lived a full life, bringing delight to tens of thousands of children over almost half a century, until about 3 years ago, when their creator, 76-year-old Meredith Bixby, decided they and he would retire in his hometown of Saline after a lifetime of traveling marionette shows all over the country.
This is the very wicked magician, and this is Uncle Henry in The Wizard of Oz, and Aunt Em, and there's the little man that sells Jack the Beans. This is Toto.
Bixby not only created the puppets, but also the scenery, stage, and posters. He drummed up business, and he taught apprentices how to manipulate his more than 200 marionettes. His wife created the costumes, and by trial and error, Bixby figured out how to make puppets that would move realistically.
These strings, this is heavy, sort of Venetian blind cord type like, heavy cotton cord, and by stringing them this way, it sort of simulates a backbone. Even in unskilled hands, they won't bend grotesquely. They'll bend like a human body can bend.
With marionettes, what seem like simple movements often are the most difficult.
It's much easier to fly or go to the bottom of the ocean than it is to pick up a teacup. That's why most of the stories of marionettes do have a lot of action in them. They don't stand and talk very well, very long.
The workings of Meredith's marionettes, as they were known, are complex. But the artistry of their faces is what makes them truly fantastic.
The first thing we do when we're making a marionette head is model it in clay. This is a little animal head. And then it's cast in plaster. Take a plaster in a box with some water and slap the plaster on until you've made a cast. It'll be divided in 3 pieces. This is, for instance, a half of a man's front face. Might be this man's face. Then fill this cast, grease it a little bit, and fill it with plastic wood, about 1/8 of an inch thick, 1/4 of an inch thick, and then you can pull it apart after a couple days, and it'll look like this. Over the years, I've been with thousands and thousands of children. I would sit on the apron of the stage and talk to them afterwards, and they would draw pictures. I have thousands of pictures and letters that your children would write me. I like to think that I've given thousands of children a basis for judging entertainment. In these days of often they're seeing cheap, junky things, I think I've given the children something that they like that has artistic merit and helps them to judge future things against that standard.
Bixby is especially partial to Russian folklore.
Well, this puppet is the wily Chamberlain of the mighty Tsar in a Russian folk story we do called The Enchanted Birds.
And what's it like to be the creation of Meredith Bixby?
Sometimes I get weary of being the alter ego of that old man that built me. I'm better looking than he is, and I can do a good many things that he can't do, and yet he controls me. He pulls the strings, so to speak, just because he modeled my features and whittled my legs out of pine. I feel for Pinocchio.
Although the puppets now hang lifelessly from Black Fishing Line and Bixby's garage, inside his house they live on in the form of moving pictures, films that Bixby is editing of 7 of his favorite stories.
I think the prime reason that I'm making the films is that the stories were made with love and devotion over a good many years, and the children loved them. We played for 250,000 kids every year, and I just can't stand it to see those marionettes become just dusty old relics in a corner of a garage. If I make the films, they'll live and millions of kids will see them, kids that never saw them the first time. The marionettes themselves, I think, when we've done that, have seen their day. They're old marionettes. Some of them are 40 years old. I think they'll be treasured gifts to a good many of my friends.
Very nice. Kathy Lema produced that piece. She's terrific.
Wonderful attitude.